So good afternoon, welcome. My name is Anna Kai. I'm the Development and Outreach Officer at New York Peace Institute. Welcome, thank you for joining our second online PeaceRaiser 2020 event, Spotlight on East Harlem. And I'm so happy to be here today to moderate this discussion. Here with us are Shane McAndrew and Roony Vizcaino from one of our longstanding partners, Urban Assembly School of Global Commerce. Thank you, Shane and Viz, for joining us. We also have Marcus Johnson from one of our newer partners, the Wagner House's Stakeholder Committee, part of the Mayor's Action Plan for Neighborhood Safety. Thank you, Marcus. And of course, we have NYPI's own Kalani Capaldi, who leads so much of our restorative justice work in schools and with youth for the East Harlem community. So during today's discussion, we will shed light on the challenges facing East Harlem due to COVID-19 pandemic and highlight the benefits of restorative justice, especially for youth. Let me just take a few minutes to tell you about New York Peace Institute and our PeaceRaiser2020 campaign. As you may know, our annual fundraiser, our PeaceRaiser, was set to take place on April 30th. Unfortunately, we had to cancel this event. Like so many of you, we have learned to adapt to this crisis. We've transformed our annual PeaceRaiser into a month-long fundraising campaign and a series of online events. And through our online PeaceRaiser, we found new ways to celebrate the accomplishments of our organization and staff, the contributions of our volunteer mediators, and showcase the work of our community partners. For those new to us, New York Peace Institute, or NYPI, is the state-designated Community Dispute Resolution Center for Manhattan and Brooklyn. NYPI provides free conflict resolution services in the form of mediation, conflict coaching, and restorative processes. We also train individuals, businesses, schools, and community groups in conflict resolution skills. And we've trained and certified hundreds, if not thousands, of mediators since we started almost 40 years ago. NYPI is proud to be an alternative to the court system for thousands of clients a year, and we are a critical resource for individuals, families, and communities facing conflict and stress, especially during these difficult times. And all of our services are available remotely. What we like to say at NYPI is that conflict is all around us, and we are here to help. So thank you to everyone who's donated to our campaign so far. If you haven't already, please donate to our PeaceRaiser, help support the restorative justice and conflict resolution programs we provide free of charge. You can find a link to donate in the chat box. And if you haven't, please make sure to like and follow us at New York Peace on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Before we hear from our panelists, just a little about NYPI's work in East Harlem. East Harlem is historically an under-resourced community with higher rates of poverty, incidents of violence, and where youth especially are at a higher risk of becoming court involved. Yet despite these challenges, the community is full of strength, leadership, and opportunity. Most importantly, it's full of dedicated residents and leaders who want to make a difference. New York Peace Institute is honored to be a partner and resource for these leaders and for the whole community. Since 2015, NYPI has led a restorative justice program at the Urban Assembly School of Global Commerce. In 2018, we expanded our partnerships in East Harlem to include Exodus Transitional Community and the Wagner House's Stakeholder Committee. And in February of this year, we launched a new youth program at Wagner. We'll have time for questions at the end, so please use the Q&A box on the bottom of your screen. So let's get started. Let's hear from some of these incredible community leaders and partners. So what I want to ask each of you first is to introduce yourself, your name, your role, your organization, and how you're connected to NYPI. Viz, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Of course. How you doing, everybody? My name is Roony Vizcaino. I'm known as Viz, or Principal Viz. I am the principal at the Urban Assembly School for Global Commerce. I am a New Yorker. I grew up in the Bronx. I was educated in the New York City public school system. I taught in the New York City public school system. I'm a principal in the system, and my children, all three, are in the New York City public school system. So I'm a lifelong believer of the work that the community is doing to propel our students to post-secondary and become better citizens.
Thank you. Marcus, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, no problem. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Marcus Johnson. A product of Harlem, born and raised. So this work really comes full circle for me. It's a couple of things to kind of give you my background, but I work for the Center for Court Innovation, and we have a partner initiative with the Mayor's Office, which is specifically the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice. And our ultimate goal is to reduce crime within the 15 developments that we are focused in. And so I am the MAP engagement coordinator. We have engagement coordinators that are placed within other sites in the 5 boroughs. But Wagner is my focus, and Wagner is close to home because I got my mom, for instance, was born and raised in Wagner. So close ties, everything really comes full circle working at Wagner. Love the work I do. Anna mentioned earlier, so we actually have a partner initiative with NYPI, and it's a conflict resolution program with youth. What's the age range?
13 to 16.
13 to 16, 13 to 16, thank you. And so it's really great work, but unfortunately it actually kind of got cut short due to COVID-19. But we're actually in the process of re-engaging this work and getting the youth back on board to do virtual programming. So definitely a lot more to discuss, but I'll end it there.
Thank you, Marcus. Kailani, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Kalani Capote, and I work for New York Peace Institute. I am a restorative justice coordinator. Also, like Viz, born and raised in the Bronx, New York. And I've been working with NYPI now going on 4 years. And I primarily worked with Viz and Shane in the school, Urban Assembly School for Global Commerce, and now also branching out into the larger East Harlem community and starting our partnership with MAP, with Marcus, and working with the youth at Wagner. So again, that got a little bit cut short, but we're looking to see how we can re-engage virtually now. So that's just a little bit, we'll get into a little bit more later. So thank you for being here.
Thanks, Kailani. And Shane, if you can introduce yourself and your role at Urban Assembly.
Yes, sure. Hi, my name is Shane McAndrew. I am a history teacher at Global Commerce. I used to teach career technical education at Global Commerce. One of the early staff members at that school when they were still building out from their first class that they ever had. I came the second year. And my work previous to working at Global Commerce was I worked in an alternative program that tried to get buy-in for students who are at risk. And we really drew from restorative practices and circle practice and wilderness awareness and things like that to help at-risk youth build this sense of community and positive adult student relationships to help build resiliency to help them with that transition. Because when students transition, it's a really sensitive time where they can often slip and find themselves not successful in school. So that's where I came from, and then I was at Global Commerce. We were trying to figure out our systems of student intervention. So that in combination with my mediation background brought restorative practices to the school, and I got the original grant and got the staff on board and the buy-in to get us all behind restorative practices, and that's how we started working with New York Peace Institute. So in that work, we started off with doing professional development. We got Kailani on board, and we've been, I don't know, Kailani, how many years it's been, because every year feels like 2 years. I'm not sure, but it's been,
Yeah.
it's been
a 5-year partnership.
It's a 5-year partnership. It's been 5 years. So it's been a 20-year partnership. And, and in that, every year we have been trying to meet the challenges of that year and what the students need and also what the staff needs, because when you are trying to build community, it's really important to also work with the staff and make sure that they're building community with themselves. It's not, it's not just with the kids. So yeah, that's kind of been our approach.
Anna, if I could spin here real quick, because Shane is selling himself short a little bit.
Go ahead.
Shane is also, first of all, let's give it up for the teachers because they're doing a fantastic job. So thank you for that, Shane.
Absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Shane. Thank you, all the teachers.
He's also has a great leader. He's also the advisory lead who has a pivotal, probably the most important role in restorative justice as the advisory lead. He trains staff and he also coordinates a lot of the activities in conjunction with Kailani for restorative justice and advisory. So I just want to give him a shout out for that as well.
Thank you, Shane.
Thank you, Viz.
Thank you, and thank you, Viz, for jumping in to share that. So I did want to get into what East Harlem is facing, what the experiences are of, this pandemic, this crisis in our city, our country, the whole world. So Viz, I know that you might have to leave a little early, so I want to call on you first again. Can you tell us about the challenges that teachers, staff, and students are experiencing right now, and how is the school responding?
Yeah, I mean, I think the chancellor, New York City chancellor said we're building the plane while trying to fly it. The difference, East Harlem, we don't have the materials to build the plane. So we had to scrap. We basically had to put a remote school together in 3 weeks, and nearly 90% of our students did not have electronic devices. You put that together with students that live at or below the poverty line, and their parents are being laid off, and they don't have any food to eat. You're talking about a lot of loss and a lot of trauma. So what we did is that we first focus on the social emotional. We've done things from creating a schedule that made sense instead of stressing families out. Something that's flexible, not just for students, but for teachers. We've put in planning days so that folks can get some rest and mental days off. We've also fed families. We have 1,200 chickens and 1,000 pounds of beef right there at the school. The teachers helped out by coordinating a schedule, and I was there with a few staff members, and we gave families food. I've gone in my car and delivered laptops and food to families. And I think at this point, we're trying to figure out how do we create the same social emotional environment that we had at our school through this computer screen. And I think when you have folks that don't have the means, that creates an incredible amount of challenges. But it also shows the inequities that exist from this community and others.
Absolutely. And so I know you said that about 90% of students didn't have a device. Do you know when you started going digital, do you know what that percent is now? So
on March 23rd, when we started going digital, we gave out all of our laptops. In the last 2 weeks, we have delivered 180 iPads and electronic devices to students. We still have, so basically our whole school has gone pretty much remote. But I think the thing that exists is that Wi-Fi is an issue. So we're ordering hotspots from our partners to see if we can get students on hotspots. And the other thing too that we're realizing is that just because you have electronics doesn't mean that you have computer literacy, right? So for both staff and students, right? So that we need professional development to I was learning from my own children. They know how to Snapchat and TikTok and all those things, but that skill is different from getting on your laptop and putting attachments on and submitting work through the computer. I think those are the barriers and things that we're seeing right now.
Shane, is there anything else that you want to add about some of the challenges or you as a teacher are experiencing?
I mean, schools have a choice if they want to try to recreate a classroom where they have the students and they're all live, or you can do something where, and this is like throughout the city, not for us, or you can do kind of what we did where we have lessons and students come on. So you have a lot more one-on-one interaction, and we do small group interactions with students. So in those one of the challenges is that students they're at home. And home might not be or the time in which you want them to do the work that they need to do might not be the right space or time for them to be able to do that, right? So if you want to have a conversation with a student about like not completing assignments or trying to help them with assignments, that might be at 2 o'clock when they wake up. You know, like it's like we're a high school, so we were teenagers. They often can sleep in, but this, you know, what it also asks from the educator is that they're social emotionally aware to know that the student isn't being irresponsible. Maybe the best thing the best thing for them, or the anxiety that they're having, is a coping strategy they have is sleeping until 1 o'clock. Like teenagers sleep till 1 o'clock, but I don't know what's happening before noon, right? So just you really have to be sensitive to what might be going on for families, the responsibilities that kids have. A lot of students because parents are still working, they have to babysit, take care of their brothers and sisters, and the younger students require more direct attention when they're getting their instruction. So high school students are having to wait, they're having to do it later, they're carrying a lot of responsibility. So as an educator, you have to be really sensitive to that, and really just always be leading, like, what can I do to help? Like, yeah, you have to get your classes done, but what can I do to help? What do you need? How are you? You know, that's like the most important questions that you can ask. Really anybody, not just the students, but also your colleagues, because that's where you have to meet everyone to try to get them to plug into doing their classwork, you know, get them to collaborate or encourage them to collaborate. If you don't do that, it's going to be really, really challenging.
Wow. And Kalani, I wanted to ask you if you could describe a little bit about what your work with the school normally involves, and then now with this crisis, how that has changed.
Yeah, sure. So my role at the school kind of changes every year, and I was doing a lot of the direct services. I was doing a lot of the circles, a lot of the mediations with students, along with training staff on how to do that. And so for this year, I'm there less than I usually, than I was in the past. And so I have taken on more of a coaching role. So coaching teachers and how to do circles, kind of co-facilitating with them in mediations, and also helping to support the dean team on the discipline side of things on how to address conflict when it arises. And so that has just all kind of changed. And so due to COVID-19, what we've been doing is more support circles for staff and more support services for students. So just, you know, like Shane was kind of touching on, just with everything that's going on, students are just feeling the stress in a number of ways. And so being that person that I'm checking in on students, and they just might not want to do their work today, you know, something's going on. And so checking in on them in that way. And the foundation of our school is really our community building aspect and our climate and culture of the school. And so that is a committee of staff members that we are constantly looking to see what can we do for students. And so in school, sometimes that means having an event, putting up pictures from the event, really encouraging students. If there's a day that we all wear pink for breast cancer, different things like that to get students really excited about school and wanting to be there. So now trying to do that virtually has been a challenge, but really supporting in terms of, we now have an Instagram account. And so the different things that we're posting there, the different activities we're trying to do, getting videos from teachers, just wishing them well. We're just constantly thinking of new things to do for students, and how to keep them engaged and how to keep them motivated. So that's kind of been my approach now, is just more on the community building side of things, since there really aren't any kind of conflicts that are arising since we're not in school.
Can I add to that?
Go ahead.
That work is really important, because what the kids have lost, like, they're not just not going to school and they're not seeing their friends, but the like, school is just totally structured with rituals of like initiation and graduation, moving on, going to the next grade. Like, I even trying to think of like your summer when you're still like trying to get the hang of what the school thing looks like is kind of wild. So the work that Kailani's doing is really important, because our kids need those to even just be connected to the school, or even like connect like with where they are even just in their life, because we have students who they're not going to have graduation in the same kind of a way. It's going to look different for them, right? Prom is looking different for them. All those expectations that they had and how they're going to mark these moments in their life looks different. So what we're trying to do the best we can in this quick time frame that we have is provide students with some sense of community so that they can connect to the school.
Wow. I mean, I can't even imagine. I remember all of my graduations well, so it's really sad what the students are experiencing and facing. And Marcus, I know you have been so busy during this time. Can you give us a picture of what the challenges that Wagner residents are facing and how you're responding?
Yeah, of course. A couple of things first too, right? So one, I also want to give a shout out to the parents as well, because parents are wearing multiple hats. I'm a father of two, one boy, one girl. And so kind of just, helping them out in this time period. I love being hands-on with them in terms of their education, but when you're juggling so many different things all in the household and it just kind of doesn't feel like you have a break, and then you're working from home and like you kind of necessarily don't have a time to punch out in a sense, right? Your computer's there, meaning you always have access to your work. And so like that work-life balance gets more obscure in this time period when things are being exacerbated, because you can see that there are so many huge gaps that have been created due to COVID-19. And so that was one thing, but also just speaking about the youth in terms of it being high school, this is, when I was in 12th grade, that was the time of my life, like 12th grade was fun. And just, so I definitely have, empathy for this cohort of seniors, of youth right now, because it looks really different. But one thing I would want to echo is that we deal with the most resilient populations in the community, so I definitely see us getting stronger from this moment. It's just, again, being real intentional with how we are using this time to aid in our benefit. But to give you a larger overview of like my role, so as a MAP engagement coordinator, essentially what I am, I'm a community organizer, and what we're doing is helping residents be community organizers. We want to help them essentially not need us, right? So we want to help amplify their voices, want to help connect them to resources and partners. And so doing this work is really rewarding. But in all of these, the community work that we are doing is all derived from the residents. Everything is resident led. And so even in terms of our priority areas as well. And so when it comes to these priority areas, they consist of mental health, they consist of parks and in terms of safe spaces, so space itself. And then the last one is actually employment. So employment is also a really big area in which that we focus on in the community, and youth development. So employment, youth development, all of these components or these areas are priorities for the community. But right now, the biggest challenges that I've kind of noted is one is mental health. So, unfortunately, so Wagner is a development of 5,000 plus people. And so, dealing with that, there's losses that we're facing in the community. People have passed away, unfortunately. And so seniors are being hit drastically. So people are faced to now just grieve in ways that are not normal. They're grieving while practicing social distancing. People are crying, but you're afraid to give somebody a hug. So it's really different in this climate. So mental health has been a direct request from residents consistently. Following that is technology, as it was mentioned earlier, right? So schools have been impacted on facing this technology gap, and so the community as well. So youth and seniors, there's stark gaps in technology, and then once they have the technology, as was mentioned earlier, people are not necessarily technology literate, and so now it's about how can we, bridge that gap virtually again, so this COVID-19 situation has, just really made it clear the issues that we need to address and what we need to be really adamant about and being proactive about. But following technology, it's like technology is like something I'm really big about to address in the community, because East Harlem is also a vacant, you know. I feel that there is so much that we can do if we tap into technology wisely and use it strategically. And so I feel that also in this climate of COVID-19, people are also realizing that technology is a bridge to so many different avenues of opportunities as well. And so bridging that gap and giving residents the digital literacy has also, you've also seen like kind of light bulbs happening. So when you teach somebody how to use Google Hangouts, they're like, oh snap, you know, like it's a pleasure to see, you know, smiles on people's faces when they are actually learning from learning in a moment that wasn't necessarily a rise in the most positive way, you know. So people have been able to be resilient, but also to kind of talk about, there's a lot of challenges, you know. I got a list, you know. So we also have food insecurity. Food insecurity is another big thing that we've been combating against. So as you may assume, and as I mentioned earlier, youth programming is one of our priority areas, but youth programming is also another thing too, because SYAP is no longer going to be happening this summer. So how are we going to be keeping youth engaged throughout the summer?
Right. I'm just going to butt in. SYAP is the mayor's office supports jobs for youth. That's that program. Correct?
Yep. Summer youth employment. Yep.
Yeah.
One of the main programs that was cut for this summer.
Yep.
Losing the income, of course, and also that professional development opportunity.
And also,
exactly.
And also, you know, the job readiness skills for kids in the summer. But I mean, if you think about a hot, again, being from New York City, a hot New York summer, that keeps a lot of kids away from trouble. You know, it keeps them busy, keeps them occupied, it keeps them around good adults, you know. So I'm really concerned for that going into the summer as it gets there.
And one other thing, that a lot of those programs, they provide childcare for the younger kids. The teenagers work with the younger kids. So a lot of the people who depend on that for childcare are not going to have that as well.
That's correct.
Wow. And Marcus, I interjected a little bit, but I know you also said food insecurity.
Yeah.
And I know that you guys have set up a food bank. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so I know I've mentioned many different challenges, right? And another one too is communication, right? Communication has been a real hurdle that many people have been facing. It just is so much communication going on, a lot of information sharing. But what we've been doing to kind of combat against all of these different things is that, so for one, we created a needs assessment that we started to disseminate in the community. This high risk needs assessment, it's an opportunity to gauge the technology gaps and also what are the household gaps as well. And so this is an opportunity for residents to indicate, you know, what items they need in the household, whether it's cleaning supplies, whether it's food items. And so right now, so we have 15 sites originally, and we actually expanded our work to now include 17 developments throughout New York City. So out of the 17 developments we have within our portfolio, Wagner houses has the highest amount of I guess assessments that have been received. And so right now it's totaling to about 750, and that was updated as of yesterday. So I'm sure this number continues to go up each day, but it just kind of just shows you through the numbers that in comparison to the rest of the sites, that there's a lot of there's a lot of support that needs to happen. But
assessments receiver, so households are submitting, they're sending in a list of all the different needs that they have.
Correct. Yeah. So this assessment has been great, and so what we've been doing is going out into the communities on various days to actually disseminate these care packages. And so we will call residents prior to our arrival, and we'll have them meet up with us and, you know, practice, you know, social distancing and safe practices. And what we've been, and these boxes are supporting households for maybe about like 2 weeks or so, and they can also be serviced again. So this could be something that is an ongoing basis. And it's been really helpful. It's been well received in the community. We're continuing to spread the word. We want to also, we are connecting people to other resources as well. If we may not be able to service them directly, we can connect them to partners as well. And we're just one organization, right? We have partners, and that's why we have a stakeholder team, and that's why we have, NIPI as well, a part of our stakeholder team. And so we can't do this work alone. And so we definitely leverage our partners to help us fill in these gaps. And so that is another way that we have been addressing the challenges, by honestly directing them to the right people to address these claims. And so it's been, partners have been really helpful, the needs assessment, and just building the residents' capacity to organize virtually now too, because it's a whole new method of kind of conducting ourselves. It's something that we need to get activated to.
Yeah, I was so happy. Kailani and I were really happy to see that the stakeholder committee went virtual. We got to take part in that meeting last week, and we look forward to the one next week.
Yes.
I want to shift gears just a little bit. And we mentioned the summer youth employment. We talked a little bit about the youth program that we started in February.
Yeah.
So I want Kailani, if you can share what that program, what our plans were for that program, what we started, and then, what we think might happen in the future.
Sure. So our youth program started by us going to the stakeholder meetings with residents and other community partners and listening to what the needs were. And one of the things that we noticed was there was a lot of programs for youth 16 and up. And there was nothing really for this preteen age, where sometimes they're the ones that kind of get lost. So wanting to get them before that 16 age. So and the other need was around conflict resolution. So there was a lot of, the Mayor's Action Plan for Neighborhood Safety. We're looking at neighborhood safety. So there was a lot of conflict happening. And so how do we get this younger group engaged in community before they end up in some type of trouble? So we decided to create a curriculum around conflict resolution and community building circles. So that's what the program was. It was a 12-week program for 13 to 16-year-olds to come build community with each other. And I would then also be giving them conflict resolution skills and peer mediation skills along the way so that they can handle conflict on their own when it arises. We were offering stipends as incentives, and we got a really good turnout for the first 2 sessions. They were already engaged. They didn't know each other for the most part, and they already started to build this community just off those first 2 sessions. So unfortunately, we had to end that. So now looking to see how we may do that virtually. And so, thanks to Marcus and the stakeholder committee, they've been doing this needs assessment to see which residents have technology at home, who has access, so that maybe we can continue this program in a different way and do that virtually. So, we'll see, and we'll see how that plays out, but we're really excited to do this program. The youth were excited, the parents seem to be excited. And so whenever we are able to be in person again in a responsible way, we're hoping that we can continue, with that same group and with other groups moving forward. Marcus, I don't know if you wanted to add anything about that particular program.
Yeah. It's been great, to be real, right? Like, so being with the youth and just kind of hearing their perspectives and just seeing they mannerisms, some people think they too cool for it. Other people are really engaged. You got the quiet types, but the thing is that everybody engaged when it was right. The space feels really comfortable. Kailani really sets the tone really well. And everybody, and because of that, it's really inviting. People are, as we were seeing, throughout, it was 2 weeks that 2 sessions that we had, but at the same time, you saw the momentum building. You saw what was going to be happening, and it was something rewarding to see. And the thing is too, like, it was just and this was my first like partnership with a partner in regards to really rolling out a program. So I've been working at CCI since September, doing, a lot of different types of work, but kind of building out a program from the ground up. This has been like the first time. And so it was really exciting to do this. And then doing this work of restorative justice. Restorative justice is something that I feel that we need to continue to spread more into the communities so people can be aware that there's multiple ways and positive and healing ways to kind of go about problem solving. And especially,
Yeah.
Can I
Yeah.
that how
Go ahead, Roony.
Yeah, I think it's really important. Like as I'm watching like what's happening in New York City, social distancing means different things in different communities. If you go to Brooklyn, certain parts of Brooklyn, it means something different. If you go to Upper West Side, where the parks are open, the basketball rims are still up. But if you go towards communities like Wagner, where there's high police presence, I think it's really, really important now to have those community relationships between law enforcement and our youth. It's really, really, really important for both parties to have these conflict resolutions strategies. And as Marcus said, it's really important for sort of both parties to understand each other's viewpoint, because again, it's going to get hot, and we're seeing things in the news, and there's a lot of work to be done in that community, in that area.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the things we really tried to focus on. We did a lot of the community building stuff. So we did a lot of icebreakers and games, but when we started talking about conflict and what is conflict and when is the time you were in conflict, and they're giving us examples of conflict with teachers or conflict with community people, strangers, police, and then having discussion around what's safe, and how are we going to respond to these conflicts when we're faced with them. So I definitely think that now with this kind of high police presence in certain neighborhoods, with social distancing, I think, this would have been the time to kind of use those skills and to just kind of be smart in how you're navigating the conflicts that, we're constantly facing.
I have to actually run and pick up my wife. So it's been an honor to be on this panel. I just want to encourage Marcus, Kailani, and Ann to continue this good work. And again, shout out to Shane and all my teachers, my beautiful teachers. And thank you so much for having me. Okay.
Thank you so much, Viz. Thank you.
Thank you.
all right.
Hi. And the chat box says thank you also. So this actually gets into another question that I had, which is, what are the benefits of restorative justice, the benefits of NYPI's, specifically NYPI's restorative justice programs, and then especially for youth? So Shane, we talked about this a little bit, but if there's something else that you want to add?
There's many, just to put out, I guess, under umbrellas, the flexibility that we've been able to use the support from New York Peace Institute, that it feels needs-based, or the way it's been implemented with us feels needs-based. Like, here we have this issue with staff, or here we're having this issue with students. So let's try to do these types of circles, or maybe not do a circle. Maybe we're doing mediations, maybe we're doing different conversations. So really kind of meeting people where we're at, or where they're at, I think has been probably what's been nice and the most effective, because I don't know how it is at other schools necessarily, but I know in my time at Global Commerce, you're constantly having to adapt to new conditions, and things are changing. And if you're not flexible and you're not able to come along with that flexibility, it's really challenging work. So that's been something that I've appreciated. In terms of what we're seeing in schools, also grief work, it's really important. I think right now, and there's a need for it, not just with kids, for loss of people that have been sick, but also loss of routine, some of the things that we already mentioned. Yeah, I'm curious about what's going to happen in public spaces as it heats up, and not only are parks going to be used more because that's a place where people can be outside, but they're also going to start to be underfunded as well. So how is that going to work? I live near St. Nicholas Park, and I know that's just the place where if nothing else, that's the place where all the couples go to either meet up to get to know each other, or to break up. If you walk around the park, it's loaded with conflict. That's a pretty calm park. So I don't know how that's going to be other places. So there's just so much to do. Like, it's almost like you want to shift the work that was happening in schools to like these other public spaces where the conflict might be happening, but the work might still look similar.
Marcus, I know, so you talked about we had these 2 sessions with our community building circles. I had the pleasure, the honor of being at one of them. So I saw, again, Kalani does an incredible job of setting that tone, kind of building trust, getting people to feel comfortable.
Exactly.
And so if there's any other benefit of the restorative justice or the other work or the partnership with NYPI that you want to mention.
Yeah, for sure. One of the biggest things that I express to the youth is it's about exposure, right? So exposure is really great because you don't know what you don't know, right? And so even when it comes to conflict resolution, sometimes people are just simply unaware of the different ways they can go about problem solving. And so the conflict resolution program provides an opportunity to broaden perspective. And that's what I feel like people need. People need to hear different insights. People shouldn't always be hearing the same perspective from the same person or persons. I think it's great to, have differing opinions, differing ideas, but especially one that's restorative, holistic, and healing, like the conflict resolution program. And so I would say a huge benefit that it addresses to the youth is really exposure. It exposes them to different types of ways they can go about being just productive in their problem solving strategies.
Yeah, I have to say one of the things that I learned by working at NYPI that opened up my eyes is this idea that conflict is possibility. Something that my colleagues say a lot. I don't always feel that way, but I definitely can see it. And when I see that kind of kids start to think about a different way that they could have addressed a problem, or how they can, they had a fight with a friend, but it made their friendship stronger. So thinking of it as a possibility. So I have to say, every single time I visit the school, whenever I, join a block party, a resource fair, a stakeholder committee with folks at Wagner, I feel inspired. I love the energy, and I really just miss being able to go to East Harlem and spend time with you all. But so my last question is, this is a really difficult time for all of us, and especially East Harlem. But what inspires you? What are you seeing from the community?
What inspires me is that I see people taking care of each other. I see people reaching out to each other. And I see, I think of work that we've done before, the work that New York Peace has done and has helped schools do, of building relationships, like being really relationship based, building trust, getting to know people, laughing with people. What inspires me is seeing how, even though we've gone to these virtual platforms, that those relationships endure and people are really showing how much they matter. And what it does for me, and it opens up my thinking around what possibilities, like how can we leverage that, right? Like, it's easy to be like, oh, I'm not seeing anybody, I don't know what's happening, like I feel so isolated. But you also can really see the kind of the tenacity of the relationships that we've built within our communities. And also you see the challenges, right? The challenges are really laid bare as well. So I see it as like just a moment of reflection. I'm really excited to see what's going to happen when New York City in general, but in this community too, when we come out of quarantine and people start to get together, what kind of reflections they've had, what kind of inspirations they've had, right? They've been sitting in their apartments thinking for a month, 2 months. Hopefully that's it. Like what's going to happen with all that time for introspection and inspiration.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I've been thinking a little bit too much, I can say. I can't wait to talk with other people.
Yeah, that's happening too, for sure,
Yeah.
but there's lots of opportunity for daydreaming. I'll say that.
Yeah. Marcus, what's inspired you? And then we're going to get into some questions.
Got it. What has inspired me, in all honesty, is I got to echo what Shane has been saying, so what I've been seeing residents been doing is honestly just picking up the pieces. They see gaps and they're not asking questions. They're responding. They are true first responders. They're essential workers that are not getting paid. And so that's really inspiring to see. And so as I do work virtually, as I even go out on the grounds to help out, you got to go out there with a different energy, just because you got to understand that this is where they live, and you can leave these places and they live and sleep there, So it's definitely a deep level of respect that I have for the people over there at Wagner, just because they truly embody the community, and I feel what true community organizers should emulate. And then they're addressing another challenge that I see is capacity. There's low capacity in so many different areas. And so they're just picking up the pieces in regards to the lack of manpower, the lack of boots on the ground. So residents are simply just coming together to fill that void that has been created.
I just want to add really quickly. I mean, Marcus doesn't give himself enough credit. I'm going to do the Viz from what he did earlier. But honestly, the stakeholder committee, it's not just about having a food bank and this is where we are and come get your food. They're looking to see if people cannot leave their homes, they're going to take it to your door. If people get their medicine from the pharmacy, they're going to get your medicine and take it to your door. So it's not just about, and again, you said it's 5,000 residents, give or take, in Wagner. So going door by door and doing a real needs assessment to see what residents actually need is way more than just come get your mask, come get your food. It's going door to door. So just want to say, it's not, you're doing great stuff, and really just it's amazing to see how people have really come together. And, just echoing what people have already said, that's definitely been inspiring to me. Just every time we meet, to see that Viz is at the school doing, geared up in all his PPE and giving out food, and Marcus and the stakeholders, same thing. They have truckloads of food. So it's just been inspiring to see how the community is coming together in a responsible way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes. Okay, so we're gonna just get a few of these questions in. One of the questions is, restorative justice is all about emotional and social connection. How can a virtual education platform continue to build community? And then I just want to couple that with the next question. What do you think the best way to spread the word and get community buy-in is for restorative justice? Shane, what experiences have you had with building community virtually?
Yeah, so so the first question is really interesting. Because what I guess, I don't know if I have a quick answer, because that's the work that we're trying to figure out right now. And I feel okay in saying that, but that said, we do know that you can build community, online. It's just that we're trying to, I don't know, maybe it's in schools, you're always trying to get kids to learn and get them to class and do things that they don't necessarily want to do. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, and that's built based on relationship. And now you're trying to do it online, but people are in online communities all day long, all the time. And trying to figure out how to merge those things, it doesn't seem like it fits necessarily. So I don't know. I don't have an answer for that question necessarily. I just think that the things that you do whenever you talk to anybody or try to build a relationship, listen to them, talk to them, respond to them. You can do that also with being online, and that helps to build a community. If a student sends me an email, or somebody sends me an email, or even probably with your work also at Wagner, right? If somebody sends you a message over a platform and you respond to it, that's building community. I heard you, right? And I'm taking the time out. I think that's how you build community.
But I also wanted to get what you think about how to get buy-in from the community on restorative justice.
Yeah, I'll say time. Time is such a, the biggest commodity of them all, you know, is the most precious thing that we have is time, right? But at the same time, what came to mind for me was that it also takes being real intentional, you know, being real intentional about what you're doing, because it really speaks to your approach. Like I really feel that, because I'm thinking about my experience at being at Wagner, because at a certain point, you know, I was the new person and I was, you know, feeling my way around. And now I really feel like they definitely brought me in as their own. I feel welcome. I feel like that's family. It really feels like family over there. And so that's why, like, when I get a call, it's a different kind of call for me. I feel it's personal. It's gotten personal to that point, but that's, again, because I'm born and raised in this community, you know, family born and raised in Wagner, so it's all really close to home. I would really say that to really get that buy-in is by being present, being consistent, and being a person of your word. You know, it's just like that level of communication. I'm telling you, it's just, I've seen it bite people in the behind so many times, you know, just like not kind of necessarily following through. And the thing, I understand that things change, but it's that conversation that around it, why things change. And, you know, I think just a lot of times that when programs are brought into these communities, they're brought in a way where it's not necessarily inclusive. And so keeping the community included in all components and all facets of the program and of the process, how you get that buy-in by having them feel a part of it.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so we have one question. Have you been surprised by any feedback or reaction from the community during this time? I know there's been a surprising reaction from students or any of the residents. Kalani, if there's something that you've been doing a lot of coaching with teachers, if there's been something surprising to you.
It's not surprising to me. I just think that everyone is coping with what's happening in their own way and just having to respect that. So there are some, you know, staff members who you might have thought would take on more of a leadership role right now, and they're kind of a little bit more laid back, or students that were really on track and right now they're falling off, or vice versa. Some students that weren't really coming to school and their attendance was kind of poor. Right now, they're doing great because they're doing their work at home. So it isn't surprising to me. It's just kind of like everyone's dealing with this however they're dealing with it. And just to be a support has just been where I'm coming from with it. There are days that I don't want to, you know, be as involved as other days. So just like giving people the space to just cope however they need to, that's just kind of been my MO going through this.
Shane and Marcus, do you have something to add?
I don't know if it's a surprise, but I think a common experience or an insight is just how much our routines help us kind of manage our interactions and self-care with each other to be able to not just support the work that we do, but support ourselves so we can be in this work. So not like none of it is surprising. Like sometimes, you know, parents are like, enough. Like, I don't call about the work that my student's missing. Like, it's enough, and that's okay. It's okay for them. It's okay to not want a phone call. I have days where it's hard to do work, and that I think just kind of like trying to tune into that and make sense of all that when it's happening. That's kind of been like I think a common journey that people have kind of been on.
Okay, thank you. So we are almost done. We have about 1 minute. These are longstanding partners with Urban Assembly for Global Commerce and, of course, Wagner House's Stakeholder Committee. So we'll have a lot more opportunities to talk. So in closing, I did want to say I wanted to do a huge thank you to our panelists. I want to do some shout outs to all the Global Commerce staff, all the students, all the teachers, the deans, everybody. Shout out to all Wagner residents and the whole East Harlem community, and of course, the resident stakeholders. And then last but not least, Marcus's predecessor, Ramon Caba. He's like a force of nature in the community. Without him, New York Peace Institute would not be involved in the stakeholder committee. I would never have gone to that first outreach event, and this partnership wouldn't have started. So shout out to Ramon. Again, thank you to everyone for joining. Like us, follow us at New York Peace. We hope that you donate to our PeaceRaiser to support this restorative justice work and our conflict resolution programming. And thank you so much to our panelists.